will serve as our discussion for the topic in finals. This will be the continuation. So without further ado, let's start our discussion by knowing what is our topic for this afternoon. So our topic would be evolution of man. So before I will discuss, give examples and give names behind this kind of creation, let's know first the main objectives or our main goal with this discussion. First, at the end of the class, you as my student will learn to define evolution and process it takes place. Next, you will determine also the age of the earth through geological study and evidence. Next, you will cite evidences of evolution. You will also explain the evolutionary theories and processes of human evolution. And you will also describe how fossil records help in solving problems concerning evolution. And lastly, you will trace the geologic time scale. So, meaning to say, this will be our main goal on discussing the topic, which is evolution of man. So now, let's define first what is evolution. So evolution is the theory that species change over time. Meaning to say, when the word said when we speak in the word like change, or we talk about the word change, meaning to say the species, we're talking about the characteristic of a species over several generations. And of course, it relies on the process of natural selection. That is the meaning of this phrase. Meaning to say, when we say change, it includes characteristics of the species. Next, we have the process by which new species originated from pre-existing species. Of course, by evolving through the original species or to the existing species, there is another evolution with the new species coming from the originated or the pre-existing species. So that is the meaning of evolution. So there are several kinds of evolution. We have geological history and geological changes. So since I've mentioned the word geological, let's define first what is geology. So geology is the study of the history of the earth and its life, especially as it recorded in rocks. Also, it eventually have its differences by arrangement of the rocks in a rock formation and changes in the composition in the rocks. Also, geology is focused on the fossils or remain of ancient organism together with the sign of their past existence. So meaning to say, when we say fossils, it is actually the preserved remains of either plants or animals or whose bodies were buried in the sediments. So that is the meaning of fossils. So meaning to say, in geology, it's not literally focuses on the rocks, on the formation, on the arrangement of rocks, while it also focuses on the fossil or the preserved remains of plants and animals whose bodies were buried in sediments. So that is geology. So let's move. So how is the earth? So let's answer this question, how is the earth? So earth is actually a 4.6 billion years old. It composed of rocks and fossils. Meaning to say, our home or planet Earth is a rocky, or let's say it is terrestrial planet. It has a solid and active surface with mountains, valleys, canyons, plains, and so much more. Earth is very special because it is an ocean planet. Aside from that, Earth's atmosphere is made mostly of nitrogen and has plenty of oxygen for us to breathe. So that is eventually the answer. How is the Earth? Yon. So when we say how is the Earth, you will be talking about what is happening to our Earth. So meaning to say, Earth is a planet, is a rocky one planet, or it is a terrestrial planet. And it has, when we say terrestrial, it has a solid and active surfaces with mountains, valleys, canyons, and plains, and so much more. So that is the answer in the question, how is the Earth? So let's move. So since we've already done discussing what is geology and what is happening in the Earth, let's go now on the time scale. So, or let's go now to the geological time scale. So the Earth's clock is time scale, of course. It organizes the past events on Earth in a time ordered sequence. Aside from that, it is the major division of geological time, or so-called eras. So, meaning to say, when we say era, it is a very long span of geological time. So, there are three, to be exact, geological eras that currently identified. We have Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic era. So, I will be discussing that in the next slide of this discussion. So, let's move. So, let's go with the eras. As I've said, when we say eras, it is a very long span of geological time. It is a formal usage or a longest portion of a geological time after an aeon. So, aeon is the first one, then comes the second one, which is eras, the longest portion of geological time. So, as I've said, there are three that is identified, and to be exact, there are four. We have Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic era. With these four eras, we have also a period of epoch. So let's discuss it one by one. Okay, let's start with the era in Paleozoic. So Paleozoic era, also spelled as Paleozoic. It is a major interval of geologic time that began on 541 million years ago with the accordance of Cambrian explosion. It is an extraordinary diversification of marine animal and ended about 252 million years ago with the end of Permian extinction, the greatest extinction event in Earth history. So the era started in Paleozoic. And also, when we say Paleozoic era, it is also known or best known for ushering in an explosion of life on Earth. So that is Paleozoic. According to Paleozoic, we have Cambrian period, Ordovician period, Silurian period, Devonian period, Carboniferous period, and Permian period. Those period has its own ages. Of course, in the Cambrian to Silurian period, it is the age of invertebrates. I know you've already know what is invertebrates, right? Because we've already discussed that in our past topic. We have Devonian period. Of this period, ages of fishes. And we have Carboniferous period and Permian period, which is the ages of amphibians. So take note with that. So let's next, we have Mesozoic. Okay, if Paleozoic is the beginning of everything of the era, Mesozoic is the second era in geologic time scale. As I've said, it is the second of Earth's three major geologic eras of time scale. It is the name of Mesozoic era derived from the Greek term which is middle life. That's why it's said it's middle, it's second. That's why it's said second of Earth to the three major geologic time scale. The Mesozoic era began on 252.2 million years ago, following the conclusion of the Paleozoic era and ended, of course, in 66 million years ago at the dawn of the Cenozoic era, or the third geologic time scales. So the major events happen in Mesozoic era are the age of dinosaurs. The age of dinosaurs were so dominant in that era. Sorry, it took a catastrophic or environment changing event for mammals to be able to take over. The Mesozoic began with the supercontinent Pangaea and ended with the extinction of the dinosaur. Meaning to say, the beginning or the age of the dinosaur is in the middle life, or so-called as Mesozoic era. So in Mesozoic era, we also have a list of period. We have Triassic period, Jurassic period, Cretaceous period. That's why it's mentioned Jurassic and Triassic period, because the age of dinosaur is in here. It is in here, or it is in this era. So aside from dinosaur, age of reptiles also is in Mesozoic era. Okay, so that's it. Let's now move. Let's move now on Cenozoic. Okay, Cenozoic is the third geologic in the geologic time scale. It is it is eventually beginning of about 66 million years ago upon the extinction of Mesozoic era and extended to the present. It was interval of time during which the continents assumed their modern configuration and geographic position, and during which Earth's flora and fauna evolved toward those of the present. So meaning to say Cenozoic, it is the interval during which the continent assumed with their modern configuration. So from the beginning of 66 million years ago, from the end of the extinction of Mesozoic to the extending to the present time. Okay? So in the period of time, we have also so-called the least of period in Cenozoic time scale. We have age of mammals, Paleocene epoch, Eocene epoch, Oligocene epoch, Miocene epoch, and Pliocene epoch. Age of humans, Pleistocene epoch, and recent epoch. So that is the least of period in Cenozoic time. Age of mammal. Of course, in Cenozoic, it discover and diverse a fascinating creature that lived in 66 million years after the extinction of the dinosaur, and learn how they related to today's mammals. That is why Cenozoic is part of the list of the period, which is age of mammals. It features the specimens discovered all over the world, including the large number of ice age fossils. That's why age of Cenozoic era is pertaining to the age of the mammals, or it begins with the age of the mammals. Next is also aside from age of the mammals, Cenozoic is on the age of humans also. And age of mammals is first appeared by around 6 million years ago in the Miocene epoch, with ended about 5.3 million years ago. So that is the evolutionary path takes us through in the Cenozoic time scale. So let's proceed. So these are the evidences of evolution. So first, the fossils record. It is a very popular evidence. The remains of the ancient life in the oldest rocks are fewer and more primitive than those found in the younger rocks. The remains of many ancient plants and animals show structural similarities to entertain organisms that live today, and fossils in the younger rocks are not found in the much older rocks. Of course, in the evidences of the evolution, number one is the fossil record. Why? Because literally, fossil record is a group which has been analyzed and arranged chronologically and in taxonomic order. So fossils are created when organisms die, or encased in dirt or in rock. It is slowly replaced by minerals over time. So that is why it is a good evidence of evolution when it comes to fossils. So that is the explanation about why, or about the evidences of evolution that started in the fossil records. Nandito talaga, dito nag-uumpisa, because this will serve as your record about those group of fossils that been analyzed and been arranged. Okay, so this will serve as your evidences in evolution, or a popular evidence. So literally, it created a certain question, since we're talking about fossils record. So what is the fossil record and what information does it provide? Gaano ba kahalaga si fossil record? Why in the evidences of evolution, it's called as a popular evidence. Why? Because all of the fossils that collected over time and arranged in chronological order are known as the fossil record. Yun na nga sinasabi ko kanina. The fossil record provides evidences that past life existed and how some living things change over long period of time. That's why it's called evolving, allowing them to survive changing environments. So that is the answer why or what is the fossil record and what is information that it provide. Meaning to say, fossil record is very important kasi that will serve as your evidences in your past life or in the past life existed and how some living things change over long period of time. That is why it's called evolving. Each time, species, environment are evolving. Okay? Next. Next evidences is from similarities in structure. Examples, forelimbs of animals. We have human, bats, dogs, whales. So, homologous forelimbs. There are two type. We have homologous structure and common ancestor. So, meaning to say, not only fossil fuels, not only the changes of, or not only the evidences of past life existed, or how some living things change, it is also include that it is part of the structure, or it is part of the structure regards with the animals or the living things in that time. So meaning to say, it will serve as your evidences from the similarities of the structure of the living organism in that time. So aside from fossil record, we will the evidence of evolution also being guide in evidence from similarities in structure, meaning to say how the living organism or how the living things will change over long period of time. That's why I have example here is forelimbs of animals. What are those homologous forelimbs or homologous structure or common ancestor of it? So we have example, we have human, bats, dogs, and whales. Okay. Next, if we have fossil record, similarities of structure, we also have evidence from embryonic development. So, when we say embryonic development, it is the general meaning of it is in organism that reproduce sexually. Embryonic development is the part of the life cycle that begins just after fertilization and continues through the formation of body structures such as tissues and organ. So all of vertebrates embryos start out as a zygote. Of course, you already know that develop into embryo. The similarity among embryos is often used as the evidence of the evolution. So it is the same as in the similarities of the structure of a certain living organism. This time, the evidence started on, or the evidence will serve as in the similarity among the embryos. So it is used as an evidence. Not only the similarities by structure, but also similarities by embryonic development or embryos. Okay. Or it is the similarity among embryos is often used as the evidence of evolution. So not only the similarities of structure, but also in the embryonic development. Okay? So let's go now to the evolutionary theories and processes of human evolution. So let's talk about the person behind the so-called evolution. So let's talk about first Lamarck's theories on evolution. Let's talk about the work of John Baptiste de Lamarck. So in 1744, 989, so it is the first biologist to suggest that organisms undergo evolution. Proposed that organisms evolve in response to their environment. And Lamarck or John Baptiste de Lamarck is a naturalistic. So the early life of career of John Lamarck was in his family. It is the youngest. He is the youngest of 11 children in a family of lesser nobility. His family intended him for the priesthood, but after death of his father and the expulsion of the Jesuits from France, Lamarck embarked a military career in 1761. So in being a soldier, or as a soldier, he became interested in collecting plants. So that is why it started his works in evolution, because in the time that Lamarck is in the soldier career, or in as a soldier in that time, Lamarck also has an interested, or has interest put an interest in collecting plants. So an injury forced him to resign in 1768. So upon the 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 explanation why Lamarck has its own theory, why, because he become interested in collecting plants during na naging soldier siya. But upon the injury, he forced to resign in 1768. But his fascination for botany endured. So meaning to say, even though Lamarck is not in the service, which is soldier, nandoon pa rin yung pagka curious niya or pagka-interest niya sa botany or sa plants. That's why he have its own theories of evolution. Okay? And by that, by the fascination of Lamarck's in botany, he created, or he has the so-called theories. Yun ang nga sinasabi ko, theories on evolution. Why? Because Lamarck believed that living things evolve in the continuously upward direction from dead matter. Dead matter. Okay, through simple to more complex form towards human, it's so-called perfection. Okay. He also believed that species didn't die out in extinction. So that is the theories on evolution pertaining on the work of John Baptist de Lamarck. Okay. Aside from that, his observations were based on two basic facts. Fossil records showed that organisms in the past were different from living today, and organisms are well adapted their environment. He also observe, or has its own assumption in development, or in development. What are those? The theory of need, the theory of use and deuse, and the theory of transmitting acquired traits. Okay, so that is the theories pertaining on Lamarck's work. So literally, the observation or the assumption in development of these theories begin in the theory of need. Why? Because it's identified that the basic need of the human beings have in order of their importance. Either it is psychological needs, safety needs, and the needs of for belongings. Even if we're talking about self-esteem and self-actualization, that is all about your need. That is all about your theory of need. It has a strong need to set and accomplish challenging goals. So that is the first observation or the assumption of this kind of theory. And also it talks about the theory of use and deuse. What are those important needs that you have, that you use and that you did not use? So and those theory that transmitting acquired traits, or the different traits of the species or the living organism. Okay, let's move forward. Let's go with the Darwin's theory of natural selection. Of course, Lamarck is the one who proposed it first, who the one observed it first about the evolution. But in natural selection, in creating the natural selection, of course, it is a different person now. So that person is namely as Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin is very known in the field of science, because in Evolution of Man, by the explanation of its book, which is Natural Selection, it is there. Everything that you want to know about how human evolve is there. It is actually differences pertaining on religion. Of course, we all know that in religion, humans evolved from humans is creation of God, diba? But in Charles Darwin, it is not the same, or it is different. So let's respect the both explanation about the religion and about the selection, because this natural selection is been discovered, and it's been assessed, and it's been observed, and it's been experimented. So meaning to say, all of the facts, all of the terms is eventually supported by a facts or a theories. That is why Charles Darwin is very known, because he proposed an entirely different mechanism to account for evolution of species. On the origin of species by means of natural selection in 1859. Let me correct the date of Mr. Lamarck. It's 1829 na. It is not 189. It's 1829. Okay, let's move forward with the natural selection. Yon. So that is the name of the book, on the origin of species by means of natural selection. So Charles Darwin observation about nature and evolutionary trends. So there were tremendous diversities in plant and animals. No two individuals in the population were exactly alike. Organism varied in size, color, behavior, and other traits. So as you can see by the statement itself, you can eventually classify that in the theory of Darwin, it is focuses on not only the internal part, but also with the external part of the living organism. Not only with the living organism, but also to the environment that they being what? Socializing, or they being connected. The habitat of the living organism, the habitat of the animals, it is focus of the natural selection. So there are a broad definition, or there are a broad description about where does the human started, or what is the start of the so-called evolution. So it's very very broad, it's very very broad description. So it's, you are not focusing on one statement also only, but you are focusing on a lot of words, and that's supported with facts. So that's why this this theory is very known. Okay, so let's proceed. So not only with that, as I've said, it is a lot more of explanation or description. It focus, the trend or the theory itself will focus also in the variation among organisms where significant in given population. There was gradual changes in the species or in the characteristics about the organism down to the coast of South America itself, and the fossils were different from the living animals. So basically, the trend or the observation not only pertaining to the size, to the physical appearance, to the environment, but eventually it focuses also on the population of a certain living organism in that certain environment. So it also said that there is a gradual change in the species characteristics. So yun na nga, napakalaki, napaka-broad ng definition of a natural selection. Next, species in the Galapagos Island resemble the species in the mainland but different in certain characteristics. Some organisms become isolated in many islands, a condition that resulted in new species with new characteristics. Okay, so this is basically a fact statement, giving a description about what is in a certain island. So ito siya as fact statement na to. So this is very constant. This is not been changing. Okay. Next, we have most of organisms produce more offspring that can survive. Oo nga. Even the living organism produces offspring, time to time also meron ding namamatay. So that is why it's so called the organism produces more offspring, but than can survive. So meaning to say, not all of that can survive. Not all of the species or organism can survive. Kasi time to time, meron ding death na nag-a-appear. So, the natural selection itself is the process by which organisms with favorable variation survive and reproduce at the higher rates than those without such variation. So, let's make it step-by-step process. So, species overproduction, competition itself, variation, adaptation, natural selection and specialization or speciation. Okay. Okay, let me correct it. It is speciation. Okay. So what is it means? It is how a new kind of plant or animal species is being created. So that is actually the summarization of the following theory of the Darwin's theory. Okay, so types of speciation. Okay, we have isolation. Anything that prevents two groups within a species from interbreeding. When a population is divided by natural barriers such as mountain, river, or landslide caused by earthquake, the situation is called geographic isolation. When the two isolated groups lost their ability to interbreed, the result is reproductive isolation. So there is, I think, two. Oh, yes, that is correct. Two type of isolation. If it is pertaining about a natural barrier or or such as Mount River, example, Mount River or landslide caused by the earthquake, you're pertaining down to the natural barrier. So it is called geographic isolation. But if you're pertaining about two group losses their ability to interbreed, it is called reproductive isolation. Okay. So me always remember that when we say isolation, it is the anything that preventing two groups within a species from interbreeding. So what do you mean by interbreeding pala? So interbreeding is the act of mixing different species or varieties of animals or plants and thus to produce hybrids. So that is the meaning of interbreeding. So generally or in an easy way, when we say interbreeding, it is the mixing of different species or varieties. If so, in isolation, it will prevent the two groups within the species from interbreeding, from mixing the species or the varieties of the species. Okay, let's move forward. So, one type of speciation also is polyploidy. It is a speciation brought about by organism with more than usual number of chromosome sets. So, if we're talking about the usual number of chromosome sets, it's called as polyploidy. So, if it is adaptive radiation, it is the process by which a species evolves into number of the different species, each occupying a new environment. Okay? So let's talk about convergent evolution. In natural selection, the cause unrelated species to resemble one another is called convergent evolution. It is eventually explained that this evolution is from outward similarities in organisms that are not closely related but have to meet similar problems in their habitat. Or it is the process whereby distantly related organisms independently evolve in similar traits to adapt to similar necessity. Meaning to say, convergent evolution is pertaining on the process by which the organism will independently evolve in similar traits to adopt similar necessities. So what is the example of convergent evolution? So convergent evolution is when different organism independently evolve similar traits. Yun nga sinabi ko. For example, sharks, dolphins. Sharks and dolphins look relatively similar despite being entirely unrelated, but it is relatively similar. Okay. Another lineage stayed put in the ocean, undergoing tweaks to become the modern shark. So this is actually the same traits, or shark and dolphin has its the same traits. So that is the example of convergent evolution. So in the opposite of adaptive radiation, it is the process whereby organisms that are closely related evolve similar traits independently as a result of adapting to similar environment. So in adaptive radiation, it is particularly on the organisms that are not closely related. Meaning to say, if that organism are not closely related, it can evolve in similar traits, and as a result of it, of course, in the adapting to similar environment, it is in adaptive radiation. Okay, so that explains adaptive radiation. Okay, so let's go now on the background on human evolution. So the following are believed to have set evolutionary pattern of man. So let's discuss first the Dryopithecus. So it is the series of ape-like fossils, a group that is both ancestral to living apes and the hominid line. So this is Dryopithecus. Next, we have Ramapithecus. So Ramapithecus is a fossil primate group dating from the middle and late Miocene. Okay, believed to be the first direct ancestor of modern humans. So this is actually a faxa. I am just describing who are those Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus. So always remember and take note with this. Next, we have Australopithecus. It is a stage in the development of the hominids. What is this? So hominids, it is actually a member of the family Hominidae, or the great apes. Great apes. What are those? Orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and humans, of course. A hominin is a member of the subfamily Homini, as I've said. So it is particularly on the gorillas, chimpanzee, and humans. So it excludes the orangutans. Okay. So next to Australopithecus, we have Homo habilis. Okay, Homo habilis, Homo sapiens, Homo erectus is very familiar with us because you have STS, right? So it was discovered in 1960. The name means handyman or skillful person. So in this time, when you are part of Homo habilis, you are actually can be described as a skillful person or a skillful man. Next to Homo habilis, we have, so aside from that, so the following are believed to have set of evolutionary pattern of man. So we have also a Homo erectus or Java man, Pithecanthropus in scientific name. So Peking man, Pithecanthropus pekinensis, Heidelberg man or mayor jaw or massive jaw. So that is the Homo erectus. So the Neanderthal, they possess large brain cases, robust builds, and large noses. So I'm just describing what is Neanderthal, what is Homo erectus, and the background on human evolution. So always remember and take note with that. So lastly, we have the Homo sapiens. Okay, it is the age of species into which all contemporary men belong. So meaning to say, now in the future, us as a human is belong to Homo sapiens. Okay, this age of species into which all of contemporary men is belong. So you, me, all of us is an Homo sapiens. Okay, so that is the end of our discussion for this day. Thank you very much for your listening. I hope that you listen carefully and you understand well our discussion for this day, and I will be downloading it I will be uploading it in our YouTube channel, and please watch it in my YouTube channel. Watch it, and if you did not understand, watch it all over again. And if you have question, you can leave it in our GC. Thank you very much and have a nice day.